Welcome to another episode of A Cuppa with a Conversationalist. My name is Con and I am the Conversationalist. And yes, I have my latte in tow as always. This morning, my guest will be discussing the truth, lies, and other fun facts about nutrition, fitness, and wellness in a world that seems to worship bad apples and fad frenzies in the market. My guest this morning is Leslie Urbas. How are you this morning, Leslie?
I am fabulous. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. Well, this morning for me. Leslie is a food and nutrition expert, a registered dietitian nutritionist. She's a private personal trainer specializing in high performance, multidisciplinary sports, fueling and conditioning, virtual health and optimal wellness coach for busy mums and business executives. And Leslie has been featured in, where is my bit of paper here, in Under Armour, Fitbit, an authority magazine, myfitnesspal, just to mention a few. So Leslie certainly knows her stuff. Leslie, thanks again for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
First of all, if we could just start with how you actually got into this area. I read in your bio that you spent 10 years in the US Navy as officer's dietitian. So how did you end up in that arena?
Yeah, so I went to college to be a dietitian, and I learned when I was in school that you had to do an internship for a year. I think if I knew that in the beginning, I may not have done it, but here I am. I'm just playing around with that. That's how I felt, right? Yeah. So I became a dietitian in college. I did my internship, and in like January of the year that I was in my internship, I got a notification, hey, you want to be a dietitian in the Navy? And I was like, yeah, why not? Like, sounds good. Scared the heck out of my parents. They were not happy campers. When you first do it, you actually have to sign a piece of paper that gets approval that goes all the way to the President of the United States that says you are eligible to sign in to be in the Navy, right?
Wow, okay.
Right. So anyways, it's a different thing because I actually come in as like a commissioned officer with my job. Yeah. Whereas, when people think of like Navy or things like that, they think of the torturous boot camp and the things like that people have to go through, right? Yeah. I didn't do those things. I came in as an officer. I already had my position, where I was going, what I was doing. So it was a totally different life. But I joined and not knowing where I was going just yet, but they gave me the position to go to Jacksonville, Florida. And I was like, yeah, I'm sold. I mean, you put me in Florida, I'm happy, right? So that's where I wound up. And I did 3 full years. Active duty, and then decided that it just wasn't for me to stay active, probably because they wanted to send me to Virginia, and that just wasn't my thing. But right, just not my thing. So I stayed in Florida, where I actually went back and I did the exact same job as a civilian, and I stayed in the Navy Reserves for the next about 5, almost 6 years, and then I got myself out because I married a military member. And we have 2 small kids, and I didn't want to be dual military and play that game. So technically I'm still playing the game, but that's how I started. That's really how my career became where it is today. I'd say the Navy really helped me mold what I teach today from what I learned being in the Navy.
Wow. As a complete aside, are mom and dad happy now?
I'd like to say yes, but I think in some weird way it's a no, because he's military, and we are set to move to Spain later this year.
Oh, so wow.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big jump. I was always like, I loved the Navy because the Navy always has to have you by a coast, right? You got to be able to jump on a ship because it's the Navy.
That's a Navy.
So I never hated that. Like, you couldn't get a bad position. There's got to be a beach in view, right? However, technically that's not exactly true. But my husband was dead set on this job in Spain, and I knew it when it came around. So I pretty much saw the writing on the wall, but my parents, I think, were in hope that it wouldn't go through. Maybe my mom more so than my dad, but yeah. So I would say yes, because they're happy that I'm happy and that I have 2 beautiful children, and that my husband and I are happy with each other. But to say that they're ecstatic about losing us to Spain for the next 2 years, I'd probably go with like, maybe not.
And as a grandparent myself, I can guarantee you that they're not happy. It's probably more about the grandchildren.
Right, I don't change much in 2 years. The kids will. Yeah.
Leslie, let's get down to the business here. Tell us, what are some of the what are one of the biggest lies or stories that is perpetrated on people with regards to diet?
Yeah, so one of them I posted about today. I like to say that moderation is key would be a pretty big lie of something that they're telling you, and that you need some sort of diet that counts you or limits you or confines you. The eat this, not that, which is every diet out there has a version of that, whether you're following like a Weight Watchers or I forget what they call it in Europe. I can't think about what it's called right now. But if you're doing keto or if you're doing anything like that, everything is just a different version of eat this, not that. If you think about it. And then the moderation is key is the second piece to some of them, not all of them.
Wow. Okay. I had a question a little bit further, but I'm going to ask it now because you've led into the moderation. One of the things that, particularly when the television program, The Biggest Loser, started some years ago, and that interview the trainers, and one of the key elements that they used to talk about was eat less, move more, and moderation, don't over it. So you're telling us that is absolutely not the case.
So I disagree with it from one thing. I agree with the eat less, move more. I get what they're getting there. Okay. But the thought process here is it's not about moderation per se. Okay. So let's say that you're trying to lose weight and you're going on a vacation. Okay. Or you're going to a wedding, right? Real things that happen. Or you're a business person and it's an entrepreneur event and you're not in control of what you're eating that night, right? We all have moments within a month where we're not the one controlling what we eat. Someone else is in control of that, right? So we're taught moderation. We're taught, okay, you wind up at a McDonald's, you get the salad instead of the French fries, or you make your kids get the apples instead of the French fries. Okay? So we're forced to do this. But the thought process is that isn't moderation. That is a food label. That is French fries bad, salad good, apples good. Right. But in your brain, what you're doing is you're telling your brain, okay, French fries are bad. Why are French fries bad? They're unhealthy for me. And if I eat them in excess, I gain weight. So when you, let's say, eat the French fries, we've all probably known somebody that weighs themselves like every day, right? So they wind up eating these French fries and they check in the next day when they weigh themselves on the scale. And it's like, oh my gosh, I gained 3 pounds from the French fries. No, you didn't. 1 pound is 3,500 calories. So you didn't gain weight. The difference was that in your brain, you subconsciously told yourself, this food makes me fat. This food is unhealthy for me. This food does this. So the more we label good and bad, the more we do that to ourselves. Now, it's not to say that no, the apple doesn't have more health benefits. It does.
Yeah, sure.
But when you say you're going to moderate, when you say you're going to moderate something and follow something in a certain direction, you're not actually going to get the results you want if you're giving yourself shame and guilt. Because let's say that French fry that you're going to eat, that you're saying, I'm not going to eat that because I'm consciously aware that it's not healthy for me. Let's say you lose your job. Let's say you have an unexpected death in the family. Let's say that something else life alternating comes, right? The moment that you can no longer clearly think, if the French fry meant something in your head, you will reach for the French fry and be unable to stop. Okay. So teaching moderation is not going to solve your problem when it comes down to it, right? Everybody has a story about how they did some sort of diet, they lost weight and they gained it. Why did they gain it back? Because they didn't change the underlying subconscious behavior. They didn't change the underlying things in their head. They didn't change their identity on the inside. Instead, what they did was, let me follow this set of plans. And as long as life is working out smoothly, I'll follow them. But they're not actually modifying or moderating or paying attention to what they need to be focused on. Instead, they're labeling that food is bad. I have shame when I eat it. I have guilt when I eat it. The scale goes up. And it internally produces the results instead of helping them to make a better decision.
What I'm getting from you here is that obviously our psychology is a key element in not only losing weight, but maintaining and controlling it.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In your, I was reading that amazing information that you sent through to me, and I noticed your program. There's 5 key elements that you work with. You talk about untether and reframe. You talk about reveal and envision, brilliantly integrate, axe and overcome, and liberate. Can you just take us briefly through those steps and just tell us a little bit more about how you do it?
Yeah, so I'll give it to you kind of in like what I call like my instead of the in-depth version, the
Sure.
brief overview version.
Yeah.
But basically, let's say that you're trying to lose weight. The first thing we need to do is we need to remove you from the things that you're going through, right? We need to remove you from the fact that you're labeling these foods and that you're giving yourself this set of instructions you have to follow, right? How many of us get an instruction manual and never read it for whatever products that we're using, right? I mean, how many people have ever read the instruction manual of an iPhone? Did they even have an instruction manual anymore? I don't know, right? Or those favorites, like when it asks you to update the phone and it gives you the long list of things and then it gives you the brief version of just accept, right? We all accept. Nobody reads it, right? Maybe somebody does, okay? I can't say everybody, somebody does. But so that's the first part, is that we really need to figure out what's going on. So the easiest way for me to explain it is that we need to figure out what it is that you're doing, what your diet history is like. We need to figure out your history, family history, if you know it. We need to figure out what it is that you want in your picture. And then we need to figure out, your overall goals, and then make a diet built around you. Okay. Instead of like, this is bad, this is good, or I need to eat this in moderation. Then we really need to get into more of that like shame, guilt area of like, where is it that you're focusing too much on? That food that you're hyper focused on is somehow controlling you in a way. So when you go to a party and that there's a food there that is tempting to you, but you know better than to eat it, your focus can be so much on that when somebody is talking to you and they're eating the chicken wings or something, you're like, how are they eating that chicken wing? Like, do they know how unhealthy it is? And your brain can't get out of it because you haven't overcome that switch, right? Levels of awareness and paying attention to yourself. The next thing that really needs to happen is after, we uncover what you need and the shame and the guilt, is getting you the steps to help you overcome them. So I always tell the story about myself with chocolate when I was in officer development school when I joined the Navy, and I was up in school. It was the longest I'd ever been away from my mom. I know I was 24. It sounds ridiculous, but at week 4, I was hysterically crying. I just wanted to see my mom. And my senior chief at the time didn't know what to do with me. So he sent me with somebody else that was the only person that got a phone in our unit. And she just handed me the phone and said, call somebody. So I called my mom. Still don't know why today she answered the phone, but she answered the phone. I was still hysterically crying, didn't say anything the whole time and just cried. And when we hung up the phone, all I wanted was this piece of chocolate. Like I was like, I need chocolate, but I'm confined. I can't get the chocolate. We don't get snacks. We don't have vending machines. We're not allowed it at meals. We're not allowed desserts. We're not allowed coffee, right? Our life is confined. So for 3 days, I moved around with this ultimate feeling of I need chocolate. Why? Because the chocolate was tied to my past. When I would feel bad or when we would get hurt, my mother would present us with chocolate or something sweet. So my brain took it as you can't get the hug. Sure, I could get a hug from somebody else there, but it's not like my mom's hug,
No.
Not nearly going to do what it needs to do. Or you can eat chocolate. And I couldn't solve the problem. So on day 3, when I processed this, I was like, wow, that's intense, right? That's something so from your past. So when people have that third step, you have to learn how to overcome that. So you're consciously aware. It doesn't mean I don't eat chocolate. I love chocolate. I have chocolate in my freezer. It means I'm consciously aware when I go to choose the chocolate that I'm choosing the chocolate, whether I want to eat it or whether I've had a bad day and I want the chocolate because I know it will bring me some sort of endorphin. I won't be able to make the pattern go away. I won't be able to say, I never will use chocolate to help me with my emotions, but I will be aware I am doing it. So that way I can say, yes, I want one piece of chocolate, or no, I need the whole bag of chocolate, and be willing to accept the consequences of both. That's the version of moderation there that needs to be termed in. It's not you only eat one, because your brain can still be constantly thinking of it, right? And then the last 2 pieces there are really like, once you figure that out, figuring out what your best pattern is, what we need to do to change it so that way you can choose to have the chocolate or not to have the chocolate and be aware. And then the last one is solidifying that. So this is the last plan you ever need. So you're not always reaching for another diet plan or in 3 years looking for something different. Instead, you're able to say in 3 years, I know how my diet works for me and how to keep my results.
Mm. Binge eating for me is, and I'm glad there's other people that like chocolate and it's not just me, because I can't imagine getting on with somebody that doesn't eat chocolate. That's just obscene.
Right.
I'll go through a period where, and it's just listening to you, the light bulbs are just going bing, bing, bing. But I never equated it or never looked at it like it's something to do with a past experience or something like that. For me, I know it's, and it just, this has been amazing. I know it's bad because I know this is a story that I tell myself. I don't have self-control. So if I open the chocolate, I have to eat the whole chocolate. And the logic is that once it's gone, I can't eat any more. So for me, then, what I'm getting from you is that I need to find what that, I guess, the subconscious component of what it really is relating to and where it's coming from. Am I hearing that right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's a combination of doing that and then overcoming the natural processes that happen within you. So one of my favorites of the subconscious things that people don't understand is like, so I have a sore on my thumb, right? Okay. I cut it last weekend. It's healing perfectly fine. There's never once been a moment that I've said, I think I need to send some, antibodies or some white blood cells to go heal my thumb, right? I don't have to think that. My body does that internally, right? It's so true. So when you do things like go up and go down on the scale or start to eat something and don't start and label those foods, your brain is getting all of these things, right? And then the more we do it, the more we form the pattern, the more the brain understands it, that we are not consciously aware of it. And then we can have 5 things kind of going on underneath. And one of them is that, right? So there's a subconscious belief that's telling you, you eat that, you will get fat. So then you eat it and you consciously almost make yourself fat. It may not be that you eat the one piece of chocolate and then it makes you gain weight, but the one piece of chocolate then tells your brain, oh, well, now we get to get fat. So now you eat all these other things that you wouldn't have done solely because you programmed your own brain to do that, right? The next thing is that yo-yo dieting component of like people, like, so I'll eat the chocolate, but in moderation. So I only eat it once. So my favorite was the cheat days. You cannot have a cheat day. Okay. When we have a cheat day, yes, you can really set yourself up, right? Okay. So there should not be a cheat day. I call them game days in my world. They're game days. Everybody's got their A game day where it's perfect. And everybody's got their F game day where they're like, forget it, right? I'm done, right? So with those being in mind, you have to watch the way you're patterning, because if we continue a certain pattern, your brain is smart. We were hunters and gatherers at one time, right? We would go long periods of time without eating. So if I'm unable to find food, guess what's going to happen next? My body isn't going to kill it. It's going to maintain a lower metabolic rate. And so then we produce this and then we kill our metabolisms in the process. But we're unaware of that until we get to our 40s, where it's like, well, in my 30s, I was able to be 130. But now in my 40s, I can't beat 140. And now that I'm 50, I can't beat 150, right? It's like that extra 10 every 10. And people are like, I just don't understand what's happening. What's happening is that you metabolically crashed your life when you were younger. And now your body doesn't know how to metabolically run as it's older, because you were living on 1,200 calories in your 30s. Well, it really actually needed 2,200 calories. So now in your 40s, when it needs less, it only needs 1,000 calories. But you're now eating more like 2,000 because you're happy, you've got kids, you're married, you're in your freedom zone or whatever it is, So all those things kind of underline, and then we blame it on age and other factors.
Okay, that's me.
Right. We all do it at some point, right? We think that. Only way I can tell people is that in high school I weighed more than I do today, and I'm 36 and I have 2 kids. So if I'm able to do it, there's no reason why you can't do it. People are like, oh, you have the knowledge. No, I worked on it. I got this. Yes, I'm a dietitian. Yes, I understand the internal processes, and I can tell you where a carbohydrate digests and how it does it and what it's doing in your body, for sure. But because of that and these other things I've learned in levels of awareness and pieces to put everything together, that's where I formulated really what I call the food emotion code. So
okay. shakes are a huge business. It's huge. And I train probably 3-4 times a week in the gym, and my go-to is my protein shake as soon as I get home. Not only for the protein component, but I just love the taste of it because it's chocolate flavored.
Right.
But there's all these meal replacement shakes that are, there's just such a plethora of them. There's millions of them. They can't all be good for you. And as a whole, do they work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I want to start first by identifying yours. So you used yours as a protein enhancing post-workout shake. Now, there's tons of research on that, and they tell you that a glass of chocolate milk can give you just as much of a benefit. But in more recent research, they're showing that 30 grams of whey protein post-workout, and it doesn't have to be within 30 minutes anymore, gives you more of a muscle return. Now, they're always doing more and more research on this. I believe that a post-workout shake is beneficial, solely just from myself and clients that do it. If you are lifting heavy in a gym, if you are taxing your body, of course, the sooner that you can replace it, the better. And whey protein gets there the fastest. So there's nothing wrong with using a shake when you're doing it to build muscle or replace muscle or something like that. But these meal replacement shakes, a couple of things. One, are they 100% healthy for you? Technically, no shake is that's like that, unless it literally says it's free from hard metals and things like that. A lot of these shakes actually have hard metals being passed through them. So that is something to think about. But then on top of that, the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is not just that there's harsh metals. Some of them aren't processed in the best places, depending on where the whey is. It can be a yes or a no. Sometimes it's too much protein or too much fat. The meal replacement shakes are literally a Band-Aid, right? It's sort of like the Band-Aid that I put on my finger to heal it, right? I put it on and it solves my problem. But most people can't live on shakes for life, right? Most people can't say, okay, I'm going to start X diet, I'm going to use X supplement, and I'm never going to stop using X supplement as this meal for the rest of my life, right? It doesn't, because most meal replacement shakes are multiple meals. So is it the healthiest? No, because we don't really know 100% what's going in it. A lot of them can't even make the right claims because they are supplement facts, and supplement facts are not backed by a government association. Supplement facts are only checked when needed versus our food labels, which are typically checked by governments. Now, at least I know that that's true for the US. Other countries, there's a little bit of variance there. But then to top that off with, okay, I'm going to use this for the rest of my life. It's the same way like saying I'm going to go on keto and do it for the rest of my life. Okay, you will come off of keto at some point. Your body will remove itself out of ketosis. Plus, in addition to that, you will have an event where you have to eat more than 30 grams of carbs, I'm sure, or you will choose to. That moves you out of ketosis. That moves you out of whatever it is. So is a shake the right way to go? Is any of that? No. Those are more ways that the health industry is making billions of dollars, because the health industry wants you to get addicted to their product and then wants you to get a weight loss. And then when you choose to throw it out, you go, well, I got to go back and do it again. So you pick it right back up and you go back to where it is. People give like multivitamins and stuff crud all the time. It's like, oh, I can't use this multivitamin because it's got, sugar in it. It's like, the same things that go in your multivitamin are fortified in cereals or fortified in the protein shakes or any of these things. So it depends on which way you want to go, because then you slice it as, is it a processed food or an unprocessed food? And all of those things kind of come into play there. But I'm not a fan of any meal replacement shake. It doesn't teach you anything. It blocks you from doing it. It's like, this is what I do then. But again, if you have that subconscious underlying behavior that takes you out for 1 second, then there may be that moment of like, I don't know why I just can't get back on those shakes. I just don't want them. And you don't know what happened, but your brain shifted on you. It's just a blind spot you have. So that's why I'm not really for them.
Yeah. You mentioned about metals in them, metallic components. Are they listed on the ingredients, or is it something that's kind of hidden somewhere in fine print?
It's not hidden in fine print. They don't have to label it. So there was a study done, I want to say I was still at the Naval Hospital, so maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that was done on the best protein shakes with the least amount of metals. I would say the one that I saw that was it was a grass-fed one, so I thought it would be healthier. Actually bought it. It's a casein supplement, which I use sometimes at night. And when I would use the casein supplement, I used it when I was breastfeeding. And there's certain ones that you should or shouldn't use and I was like, oh, this one's got to be healthy. Came in the door and it literally said on it, even though it was a grass-fed, it was all that, it was like, contains these potentially harsh chemicals, don't encourage during breastfeeding. And one of them is, God, what's that one that lead? One of them is lead, right?
Jeez.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to eat this because I don't know if there is lead and how much I could pass to him while breastfeeding. I'm like, God, Jesus, there goes this. So I just threw it away because none of my friends wanted it. None of them took it. And I was like, I'm not even going to go through the hassle of sending it back to Amazon because it was opened. And I'm like, I don't want anybody to be sending anything back open to Amazon and Amazon reusing it. So I was like, I'm throwing it away. I don't care. We're just eating the money. So it didn't matter to me, right? I was like, I'm not that cheap. But yeah, so yes and no. Some of them do, some of them don't. It's doing your research on them. Yeah.
You mentioned a little while ago about the value of the diet industry. Let's say I actually did some quick Googling this morning before we started, and as the study that I read, as at 2018, it was worth over $70 billion.
Yep.
Which is just mind blowing. 70 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Vegan diets. I'm fascinated by that. I am a carnivore through and through. It's just like, give me meat. I love meat, although as I'm getting older, I understand that I can't and I shouldn't eat as much. What are your thoughts in terms of a vegan diet compared to, I guess, one that encompasses meat and understand we should eat possibly more fish, and chicken as opposed to red meat?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I'm a fan of any kind of meat as long as it's a lean meat. So it really has to be more of like a 93.7 or a leaner cut of meat. And then you haven't really compared and contrasted anything different. So everybody thinks, okay, ground turkey is better than ground beef. Not always. If you're getting regular ground turkey, you're getting 80-20, which is the same thing as something else. And sometimes, depending on what country you're in other countries with ground stuff, they're actually putting vinegar and other processed things in there that they don't really have to tell you. It's just listed in the ingredients. So that's why meat can also take a little bit of a bad rap, because there's so many ins and outs that people aren't really paying attention or don't know to look for. And it's legally something they're allowed to do that you just are unknowing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time, I think they actually crossbred certain oranges with the DNA from a cold water fish, so the oranges would survive a frost. Not all of them do that, but yes, we're able to do that, right? That's what food genomics are. That's why some of them, like Fiber One, is technically like any Fiber One product or like a bar of any kind. We manufactured that. That is not something that is normally processed together, right? We created that. So now that we have this different, entity, we did that. We made that in a facility. It was not like the apple that grows out in the ground, but we're able to take the things out there and do them, just like we made broccoli cauliflower, right? There's now cauliflower and broccoli that's together, right? We crossbred those two DNAs to make this new product. It wasn't something that just grew on its own. Okay. So when somebody says, should I be vegan? Should I be whatever? I ask, where's your heart at? Could you get rid of meat? Are you willing to say right now, I'm down with not eating meat for the rest of my life? Okay. Then if you want to go vegan, why do you want to go vegan? Because I want to save the animals. Okay. So do you really want to go vegan, or do you want to go vegetarian, or do you want to go ovo-vegetarian or lacto-over-vegetarian? Which way do you really want to go? Because sometimes people think veganism is better, but vegan products now have hot dogs that are vegan. They have chicken meat that is vegan. They have chicken nuggets. They have all these things. Guess what that is? It goes back to that same protein bar we were just discussing. We just genetically modified a bunch of products and made it so that hot dog that is vegan tastes almost exactly like the real hot dog out in the world, but it has no animal products. But that is super processed. So people go, oh, a vegan diet's better for me. It is if you are literally going for the actual foods, like you're literally just eating the foods that come from a plant that aren't manufactured to taste like the food you love from a vegan perspective.
That's a really interesting point that you make there, because even me, I'm fascinated by it to the point where I drove past somewhere the other day and they had a massive billboard where one of our major supermarkets was promoting these vegan patties that taste exactly like meat. And
Beyond Burger?
No, I can't remember which one it was, but I saw it and I thought, hang on a minute. And there's just this morbid curiosity where I want to try it. But you just really made a really good point. It's processed. It's processed. So why would you bother?
Right. And don't get me wrong, they're plant-based, right? So
yeah,
people
sure.
are like, they're plant-based, yes. But the beans cannot taste like a burger. So they have to put something in it to make it taste like the burger, and not just spices, because you can spice beans like you spice meat and you're still going to taste the two of them and know a difference, even if they're both in the vague shape of a burger.
And the funniest thing that I saw probably about on a year and a half ago, we have Hungry Jack's here, which is your Burger King in the US, and they released their vegan patty, and there was this massive uproar because they were cooking the vegan patty on the same grill and hot plate they were cooking the regular ones.
I wonder if that's the same thing here, because Burger King has that here too. I wonder if anybody's raised that here. I feel like that would be something everybody would do. You know what I mean?
Like seriously, I can't imagine that McDonald's or Burger King are going to have a separate hot plate or a separate grill for a product that probably represents, I don't know, probably 2% of their sales.
I get that. You know, that's the same thing. So technically, if you have anything that is I'm trying to think of what that is, gluten-free, like if you establish yourself as a gluten-free, you should actually have separate everything for those. Yeah.
Interesting that you went on to gluten-free. It wasn't a question, but now it is. Leslie, I just find that there are so many more allergies nowadays, whether it's food allergy, nuts, gluten, whatever. As an older guy who, fairly conservative, born in the 50s, is it legitimately that there is more of it happening, possibly because of other external factors, or is it that we are just more aware of it?
So I think it's a twofold. Before, when I was born, I'm 36. So when I was born, that era of like, I want to say the 1980s, maybe even into the early 1990s, they encouraged you not to feed the foods that are major allergens to your kids because they thought it increased allergy risk, where it's actually opposite.
That's what I would have thought.
Yeah, you want to expose them to those major allergens the younger they are, to give them that, so that's really what that was. So we saw an increase, and now I think it's also that we increased testing, right? So people are like, I just, like, my stomach feels off, something doesn't feel right when I eat certain things, so they go get allergy tested. All of us have sensitivities to something. I mean, all of us have different guts. So because we have allergist specialists, and because people are more hyper aware and they're like, I'm bloated, so I'm going to go do this, or my weight isn't budging, so I'm going to go get my hormones checked. If you go to a doctor that's going to help you with your hormones for weight loss, they're going to find something wrong with your hormones. right? They're going to find something, even if it's just something minuscule, they'll find something that's wrong with your hormones. Same thing with the food allergist, potentially, but some of them are like, so you get a scale of your food allergies, and then it'll tell you like, these are the ones that you should eliminate. I feel like my aunt did this once, and she gave me like a laundry list of things that she was allergic to. And they were all like the lowest category. I'm like, okay, so you're not really allergic to them. We all have sensitivity to something at some point if we hyper eat it. But when are you sitting down to lick a bottle of cinnamon? You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like you're gonna sit down and chug a bottle of cinnamon. I mean, I'd love to see you try, because it'd be really funny with how dry cinnamon is. But it's just one of those like, people became more aware. So allergies got pushed more because we removed giving kids major allergens when we shouldn't have. And then, which we didn't know. Okay. Right. We always got to guess and check. We guessed wrong. We check again. We do it differently. And, my kids have had all those major allergens and so far seem to be okay. Right. But once we know we have a specialist for that, if you're complaining about it enough to your doctor, what's your doctor going to do? Go see a specialist. Right. And so the specialist can pretty much, I'm not going to say they always find something wrong, because I'm sure specialists don't want everybody to see them, but I'm sure the right person can always find something that you could have to eliminate.
Yeah. It's interesting. I can say this about my brother because I know he won't be listening. He has, and it's a bit of a family joke. He says he's allergic to garlic. And so when we have a family function or anything, he's and in fact going out with him for dinner is quite embarrassing, because he's grilling the waiting staff about, I'm highly allergic, and the utensils can't have touched it, and we know it's all garbage, because we had a family barbecue, and I said to him, no, I've put your chops aside, your lamb, yep, no worries. They were on the hot plate, there was garlic everywhere, same utensils. And did he get sick? No. So I think there's a fair part up here. Intermittent fasting is another one that I'm absolutely fascinated with. And I kind of understand the logic behind it, but can you enlighten us as to whether it's A, does it actually work? And B, is it good for you?
So intermittent fasting is definitely going to work. It will help you to lose weight, just like any diet will. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Weight Watchers doesn't work, or that Noom doesn't work, or that, keto doesn't work, or anything like that. Whatever diet that you do follows basic things, right? Like we talked about, eat this, not that, restrict your calories, and the moderation of the things that you can consume. Right. Okay. So they'll follow those rules and they'll get you a result, but that's not changing basic underlying factor. So with intermittent fasting, there's a couple of things. One, you have to abide by that at all times. You can't change it. The second thing is that the more you do that and then you return back to normal, your body is changing its processes. So it's actually changing the way your insulin is working. It's changing the way your liver is responding, because it's certain things that it's doing. So I've seen positives and negative. One of my instructors in college actually was one of the first people that kind of did an intermittent fasting. I'll never forget him. He was like a marathon runner, super skinny. He weighed less than I did. I think I weighed like 145 or something when I was in college, and I was 5'7". And I want to say he was like 5'7" too, maybe 5'6", and maybe weighed 120. Like, I felt like I could go like this and break the man apart. Right. But he was very fast at what he did as a runner. And I get that runners need to be on the leaner side to make, to go through the year faster. But he did intermittent fasting, and I did a research paper on it with him. And there is good science behind it, but you have to live it. It's not the people that play on and off of it and do things like that. You're changing your insulin patterns. You're changing the way your body is responding. So then some of them, when they come off and they eat a meal at the wrong time, they'll have like I don't feel good kind of moment, or their blood sugars kind of go a little bit different, because their body's like, okay, you've been following this fasting diet for so long, it's not used to it. It's very similar to if you fast for too long, right? So we fast to take a blood test. If you fast for too long of a period of time, your body, if your blood sugar gets too low, your body will naturally spill out blood sugar from the cell. So that way you don't plummet in your blood sugar, as long as your blood sugars are working fine. So then when you go to the doctor, if your body just spilled sugar over, your sugar may register higher solely because you fasted for too long. So it is testing those processes. It's testing your insulin, it's testing your glucose, it's testing your glucagon. There's a lot of other things that kind of go in there into play with it. So I'm not pro for it. I'm not pro for anything that you just tell me I'm going to do it to get the weight loss. I need you to say I'm in it for life and really mean it. If you're in it for life, it will forever work for you. But the thought process is that it's all those underlying behaviors. I'm in keto for life. Okay. And then, the day comes that your mom dies or something and you're completely torn and you finally reach for that one piece of sugar again. At the moment of despair that you reach that sugar again, every process that you've had that you've shut down comes back like that. And it will be that much harder for you to progress forward solely because you never dealt with it then. You just used this diet as a Band-Aid to get you what you wanted.
Well, to all those people who have been telling me about intermittent fasting, wow, have I got some news for you. We spoke about middle-age weight gain, and so I won't go there. Genetics is another thing. People will use this thing that they're, I can't do that because of that, or I'm big boned, or I'm this, or I'm that. Tell us about like how much of a role, how significant is our genetics and our and biochemistry in terms of how we look, how we behave, how we interact with certain foods.
Yeah, so there is a lot of research. Let's say that my grandma was obese when she had my mom, and my mom was obese when she had me. It is now written in my DNA to have an obesity gene, but it doesn't mean I automatically get it. Okay. Doesn't mean I automatically become obese. It means I'm more susceptible to getting it, right? Just like if your grandma had cancer and your mom had cancer, it doesn't mean you will have cancer, right? It runs in your family. It's a hit or a miss. Yep. Nowadays, you can actually do some genetic readings that will give you some more, like you're more prone to X, Y, or Z. Okay. But with that being said, in terms of, is obesity something that you can get? It's more passed to you. So yes, there are different structures of people, right? We have really skinny people, and then people that are very fit that just aren't. Like I always joke about the men that have the six-pack that goes in and the men that build the six-pack that goes out, right? It's neither are different. Like they both look great. You got a six-pack either way. It's just, is it built on the outside or built on the inside, right? So there is a difference in which our bodies are made. I'm not going to say that that's not a thing, but it's how you were raised, more so the environment that you were raised. Let's say I was adopted. Let's say the same thing. Like my grandma and my mom were both obese when they had me. So now it's written in my genes, but I'm adopted by a very skinny family. I've never heard anything about being obese or being overweight or we're eaters or we eat a lot. So my environment's completely different. I may be obese because it's written in my genes, or that environment shapes me to just think I'm a skinny person and that this is natural for me. So I am this person. So it's sort of like, I've said this to past clients before that were like, I was so skinny. I was so skinny. I was so skinny. And now I'm not skinny anymore. And I don't know what happened. What happened is potentially when you were little, your mom would say, if you eat that, you're going to look like your aunt so-and-so. You got to stop eating that. So as you got free from your mom and chose to eat it anyways, in your brain, you solidified the process that now I'm eating this, so I'm becoming my aunt so-and-so, just because you heard it too often. So it's, yes, genes play a role, but we all know as much as genes play a role, so does your environment. You grow up in an Italian family that says we eat, that's what we do, we eat. Then what are you going to do? You're going to eat because that's what you do. It's in your brain. If you come from a family of marathon runners, what are you going to do? We run. It doesn't always go like that, depending on how aware your parents were when they raised you, right? Did they raise you to be your replica, or did they raise you to be who you're supposed to be?
Environment, I like the point you make there regards our environment. Certainly from being of ethnic European origin, it's a lot of our socializing is around food. And sadly, I could eat pizza and pasta till the cows come home, and of course, then you step into the gym and go, well, you better do an extra half a dozen sets to burn off those that pizza and pasta. The challenge then, Leslie, clearly is if you are someone who is really, really conscious about it and you are taking the right steps to control your diet, eat healthily, etc., but you're in an environment where it does not support that, whether it's my kind of family or, a group that eat a lot of junk food, things like that, you can't remove yourself from that. Otherwise, you're kind of removing yourself from your whole family or your whole group of friends. How does one steel themselves mentally to be able to go and make those right decisions, even at the times where it's just so challenging?
So that's where you have to become aware that the behavior that you're doing is like a subconscious behavior and consciously choose to do it differently. Right. So what I mean by that is okay. We'll go back to my mom, my grandma. This is a true thing. They use real mayonnaise. They use real butter. Mm-hmm. I know that every time I go to a meal cooked by one of them, they've used real mayonnaise and used real butter. When they come to me, they get the butter that I want. Right now I'm using avocado butter typically just because it tastes the same, does the same, and it's delicious. Yeah. And I won't use real mayonnaise. I very rarely use mayonnaise, but I won't use real mayonnaise. I mean, we probably bought the last thing of mayonnaise 6 months ago. It's probably expired in the refrigerator right now as we speak,
Penicillin.
But, right, exactly. So they got it. I didn't. Now, if you ask my mom, she'll do the reduced fat or the other options occasionally, but there are times. Thanksgiving, we will use mayonnaise on the turkey sandwich. Okay. It's real mayonnaise. That's what tastes the best on this turkey sandwich. Right. Okay. I'm not going to say I haven't had it because I have. I tried it, but I was willing to change the environment and to push the envelope. Right. So my mom and I have this understanding of we're just two different people. It's the same thing of, I always share the story as well of when I was 16 years old, I decided that I was going to start working out. I got up every day as a 16-year-old with my mom and we walked, or I ran, she walked in our front room for 45 minutes at 5 a.m. every day at 16. I've not changed that pattern. I still work out in the mornings. My parents have numerous times told me, just sleep in. You don't have to work out tomorrow. Just sleep in. I've noticed in the past 3 years, they no longer say it to me because I don't listen. I understand you're doing that, but I am a different person if I don't complete the behavior. So they've never done that. To them, that's something abnormal. So I change the environment. To somebody like that, I would have to say, you have to be the one that's saying, I'm still here with you. I'm not judging you for what you're doing, but I've changed myself, my subconscious, and I'm consciously choosing to say this instead. And that would be the thing I would say they'd have to go through.
Yeah. Sounds great. Meal prep. We're busy. It's a very busy life that we lead. And it just keeps getting busier. You talk to somebody and how's your day? I'm busy. How's this? I'm busy. And it's just this busy. And whilst we're conscious about our food, what we consume, sometimes it's not practical to be able to have those healthy options wherever we are per se. What are some of the easy and fast things that we can do in terms of preparation to make it easier for us to continue the right path in terms of what we consume?
Yeah. So the things I do is I am one of those people that gets the things that are already cut up, right? If I can get the broccoli and cauliflower that's already cut up, I'm going to get it already cut up, right? Because that's a time saver there. The other thing is that when I go to grocery shop, I grocery shop and prep. Okay. I don't cook because I can cook the day of, and I prefer my foods, fresh instead of re-microwaved or whatever it is. So what I mean by that is my kids and I go to the grocery store. If I come home with fruit that needs to be washed or cut up, I immediately wash and cut it up. If I have vegetables that I'm going to use later in the week, like peppers for something, I'm actually going to cut them up and prep them and put them in a bag. So that way the night of, it's like prep, put together, right? So I take the time to initially prep myself, meaning all the meals are pretty easy to go, right? So I'm just then adding things to the pot. That's where people get conflicted. Mealtime takes so long because you're like, okay, I have to cut this and then I have to put this here and then I have to do this, but it could be streamlined if you saved yourself time. Then the thing that people say is like, let's say they're meal prepping and they're doing it all ahead of time. Well, I don't like the microwave food, or I don't like the microwave egg, or I don't like whatever, right? Because people don't like those things. So how to get out of that is to also prep ahead of those things as well. So it's just 1, 2, 3, you know, it's putting the skillet on the stove with the spatula next to it the night before you go to bed. So when you only have 2 minutes in the morning, you're like, okay, got this, crack the egg, we're ready to go, right? While you walk through the kitchen to turn the coffee on, you turn on the stove so that way the pan gets heated up. Then you come back, the coffee's done, you throw the egg on, and in 2 minutes, you've got an egg, you've got breakfast. Didn't take you long, right? Maybe you don't have time to wash the pan. Okay, so put the pan in the sink with a little bit of, water on it. And tonight when you do the dishes for dinner, you do the same thing. And then you'll take it and you'll put it right back on the stove and repeat the steps again. So it's less meal prep. It's more like think ahead prep. And people are like, well, it still takes me the time at night. Yes, but you're not rushed at night. You're rushed in the morning because you hit snooze 7 times on the iPhone that you didn't, turn off, right?
I must confess I had 3 reminders to get up this morning, although I did get up on the first one.
Well, good for
you. Leslie, with food that we take with us, so I know how expensive it is to, go and have lunches if you're working in the city or whatever. What are some really easy, healthy options for taking away with us, whether it's, we're going out to somewhere where we know there's not going to be any healthy options, or for lunches and things like that? What are some really healthy things that we can do?
Really big fan of what they call a bento box, which is a box that you make yourself. So I'm not talking about buying them pre-made. I'm having you do it. So like a bento box is like it's a box that has 4 slots in it, right? It's sort of like an adult Lunchable. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So one of them is, let's say you've cooked dinner from last night. Let's say last night's dinner was chicken and peppers mixed together with some brown rice. Okay. So now what you want to do is when you're going to combine all those things, you put the chicken in one dish, you put the peppers in another dish, you put the brown rice in another dish. And then let's say you even throw some fruit. You now have a bento box. You take a bite of the rice, you take a bite of the peppers, you take a bite of the chicken. And that can be cold or it can be warm, depending on which way you're going for. Or let's say you're not a fan of the rice at that point. You take some of the chicken, you take some of the rice, you bring some healthy crackers, and then you throw some fruit in on the side there. Now you have a complete meal that's easy on the go that can be cold. Okay. So lots of people will eat deli meat. I get it. Nitrates, nitrites, sulfates, I get it. So use actual food. You're eating cold meat either way. So just eat a different cold meat. Just make sure it's thoroughly cooked the day before when you do it. So that's what I'm a really big fan of, is the bento boxes, or something along the lines of, I'm not ever opposed to somebody doing like a protein bar with a piece of fruit, as long as that's going to beat it. But that's a temporary thing. It's not going to solidify you every day. I am a fan of salads, but you need some sort of carb to go with it. The downfall with salads is they typically don't have any carb on it, and you are still going to need that or you'll plummet. Again, I'm not opposed to sandwiches as long as there are vegetables on them and you're down with getting the nitrates or the nitrites that are in the sandwich meat. I don't have a problem with that either. But those are my typical go-tos. I like the bento box because to me, it's like, whatever I have the night before for dinner, I can modify that and put that in the box. So it's like I'm doing everything that night before and then going on.
Yeah. Excuse me. Okay. Leslie, thank you so much for your time. It's been so informative, and so the content's been so valuable. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today has been Leslie Urbas, all the way from the US, and she has definitely demystified and given us a great deal of information regarding diet and lifestyle. Leslie, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My name is Con. I am the Conversationalist, and until next time, bye for now.